Elon Musk has evidence heaven is real. I know this might sound unbelievable, but lately I've been convinced that heaven is real. This isn't just some passing thought. I've been wrestling with this idea for months, and it's completely transformed how I view life, death, and everything in between. I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me what state you're listening from, because what I'm about to share isn't speculation. It's something deeply personal and profound. Chosen one. Don't just receive, respond. A simple super thanks up to $20 is a way to say yes to what heaven is releasing through this word. For most of my life, I've been all about building companies, technologies, solutions. But recently, my focus has shifted to something far more profound. What happens after we die? Are the people we love still with us in some way? I used to believe death was the absolute end. When someone passed, that was it. No more. But certain experiences have challenged that belief. Let me tell you about Marcus. He was like a father figure to me when I was launching my first company. An older man who believed in me when no one else did. Marcus taught me not just about business, but about humanity, how to treat people with respect and kindness. He had this incredible ability to see the good in everyone. When I was young and reckless, making mistakes that hurt others, Marcus would patiently help me understand the impact of my actions, not with judgment, but with genuine care. He used to say, "Son, how you treat people when you don't need anything from them reveals who you truly are." That lesson stuck with me more than any business tip. Marcus passed away 5 years ago from a heart attack. Losing him was devastating. He had been my mentor, my guide, someone who truly understood me. At his funeral, surrounded by hundreds whose lives he'd touched, his wife shared something unforgettable. Marcus often spoke about me, how proud he was of what I was building, and how he wished he could live to see it all unfold. About a month after Marcus died, I was having one of the worst days of my life. Everything was falling apart. My companies were struggling and I felt utterly lost without his guidance. Late at night in my office, I suddenly smelled something unmistakable. Pipe tobacco. The exact blend Marcus smoked. I was alone, windows closed, no logical explanation for the scent. But it was so vivid, so real. Along with that smell came a profound sense of peace, as if Marcus was right there reassuring me that everything would be okay. I found myself speaking aloud. "Marcus, if that's you, I need your help." The scent lingered for about 10 minutes, during which I felt a clarity I hadn't experienced since his passing. I knew exactly what steps to take, how to face my challenges, not just with strategy, but with the values Marcus instilled in me: respect, integrity, and compassion. The next day, I followed that guidance and things turned around in ways I couldn't have predicted. You might say it was just my mind playing tricks, but the advice I received wasn't something I would have come up with on my own. It was Marcus' wisdom, practical, insightful, deeply human. That experience opened my eyes to other moments I'd previously dismissed as coincidence. Like how my mother calls me exactly when I'm thinking about her, not when I call her, but when I'm overwhelmed or missing her. She has an uncanny intuition, often telling me she was praying for me or had a dream about a loved one, prompting me to check on family members who were struggling. Or how songs my father loved come on the radio at the most poignant moments, reminding me of lessons I was too young to appreciate before. These moments happen too often to be random. It feels like the people I love remain connected to me in ways I can't explain. The biggest shift in my thinking came when my neighbor's wife Eleanor was dying. Eleanor was 84, a woman who made everyone around her feel valued. Though I didn't know her well, she always greeted me warmly. The day before she passed, her husband told me she'd been asking about me despite being unconscious for days. When I visited, Eleanor looked me in the eye and said something that shook me to my core. She told me my father was proud of me, that he understood why I left South Africa and saw the good I was trying to do, even if he hadn't before. She said he was sorry for being hard on me, scared for my future, but now he saw that my dreams were exactly what the world needed. Eleanor said I wasn't alone, that many loved ones on the other side were watching over me, proud of what I was building. She passed that night, but her words lifted a burden I'd carried for years. The guilt of thinking my father was disappointed in me. After that, I began to see death not as an end, but a transition, a place where love continues, where those we've lost can still reach us in moments of need. I started noticing more signs. Sudden clarity during tough decisions, feelings of being surrounded by love when I'm lonely, and the way solutions appear just when I need them most. I've realized that love doesn't end with the body. It transcends time and space. The love I have for my children, my family, my friends, it comes from somewhere deeper than the physical. If I were to die tomorrow, that love wouldn't vanish. It would persist in some form beyond our understanding. Maybe heaven isn't clouds and angels, but love in its purest form. Consciousness freed from physical limits where we can love perfectly without fear or misunderstanding. This belief gives me hope. Hope that those I've lost are still with me. Hope that when my time comes, I'll be reunited with them. Hope that the love we share here is eternal. It also changes how I live. I don't just focus on goals or schedules anymore. I think about the people I'll meet, the moments I'll have to show kindness, patience, and love. Because maybe those moments matter more than any business deal or achievement. I want my children to learn to love well, to be kind, forgiving, and compassionate. To understand that everyone is fighting battles we can't see, and that love is always the right choice, even when it's hard. I've also come to see difficult people differently. Those who seem angry or mean might be carrying unseen pain. Showing them kindness might be exactly what they need. Marcus taught me that hurt people, but loved people love people. Sometimes one act of genuine care can break a cycle of pain. Forgiveness has taken on new meaning. 2. Holding on to anger only weighs me down. Maybe those who hurt me were doing their best with their own pain. Forgiveness isn't excusing their actions. It's freeing myself from carrying their burden. If heaven is real, maybe it's a place where all misunderstandings are healed, where broken relationships can be mended. This perspective has transformed how I view my legacy. I want to build more than companies. I want to build love, kindness, and lasting relationships. Because maybe that's what heaven is. The love we create and share coming back to us multiplied. Every act of love is an investment in eternity. Every moment of compassion creates something that death cannot touch. If you're missing someone or afraid that death is the end, I hope this gives you hope. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. And I believe it continues long after our bodies stop working. What experiences have you had that make you believe love is stronger than death? Share your story. I'd love to hear it. I spent my 20s and 30s obsessed with building companies, rockets, ideas, learning to trade ego for traction. But life has a way of teaching lessons no boardroom can. One of the toughest lessons came after losing Marcus. He was older, calm, relentless in his faith in people. When I was green and arrogant, and made mistakes that hurt other people, Marcus didn't scold. He taught me what dignity looks like in action. He used to say the same sentence over and over until it landed. How you treat people when you have nothing to gain shows the shape of your soul. Marcus died 5 years ago. Heart attack. I flew back, sat through his service, listened to story after story about the quiet ways he changed people's lives. His wife pulled me aside and told me how often Marcus spoke about my projects and how proud he was. A detail that felt like both balm and burden. A month later, I hit a wall. Companies under pressure, decisions piling up. The kind of night where the ceiling felt lower than the floor. I was alone in my office, the kind of alone that makes every failure feel permanent. Then something odd happened. Out of nowhere, the scent of pipe tobacco filled the room. Not a generic smell, but the exact blend Marcus smoked, the one nobody else I knew ever used. For 10 minutes, the office smelled like those late-night conversations we used to have. There was no one there. Windows closed, air conditioning humming. Still, the smell was unmistakable, and with it came a deep enveloping calm. The kind of calm that tells you to stop spiraling and make the good decision. I whispered, "Marcus, I need you." And for that slice of time, clarity arrived. The ideas I needed were exactly the kind Marcus would have given, practical, humane, and anchored in respect for the people affected. I followed that gut the next morning and things changed direction. Not magic exactly, but a shift that felt guided. You could call it memory or pattern recognition or the brain backfilling. I get that. But this wasn't the sort of consolation that comes from nostalgia. The guidance I felt wasn't my own. At least not the version of me that had been panicked an hour before. It was older, steadier, the kind of counsel that had lived through more storms. After that night, I started noticing other things I'd often dismissed as coincidence. My mom calls at the weirdest times. Not convenient times, but the precise moments I'm wearing out from work or wrestling with a decision. She says she felt compelled to check on me. She tells me she had a dream about a relative and asked me to call someone. And when I do, it turns out that person needed to talk. My mother's intuition has always been sharp. It's just gotten louder with age. I used to chalk it up to probability and timing. Now it reads differently, like an invisible thread connecting people across whatever we call distance. Then there was Eleanor, the neighbor everyone loved. She baked. She listened. She remembered birthdays I didn't even know my neighbors had. When she fell ill, the whole block worried. The morning before she died, her husband told me she woke lucid for a moment and asked for me. I rushed to her bedside. She looked at me, really looked, and spoke words I'd carried since. Your father is proud. He sees you now. He was scared for you, but he understands. I burst into tears. My father had died years earlier. We had never resolved our friction. That brief clear message unlatched a weight I didn't realize I was hauling. Guilt over choices. The myth that some exits mean you were unworthy. Eleanor couldn't have known those private things. She had no reason to speak them. Yet the message landed with the authority of truth. Once you begin to notice patterns like these, they multiply. The right person calls at the right second. A song that my father loved drifts across a radio and lands at the exact point I need its lesson. An investor shows up when capital looks impossible. A stranger's kindness carries me through a week that felt endless. I keep asking, is this just randomness wearing the clothes of meaning, or is it something else? A continuity of attention that survives the body that once carried it. If consciousness ends entirely at death, these moments are hard to explain beyond clever statistics and human pattern seeking. But if the self persists in some form, if the love and learning and character we build outlive the body, these moments become possible contact points. I don't mean to turn this into theology. I mean to propose a practical reframe. What if love, not data, not equity, not even reputation, is the primary currency that persists? If that's the case, then every conversation, every kindness, every small, boring act of decency becomes an investment in something that outlasts us. That reframing has changed how I move in the world. It makes time with people feel like stewardship instead of just scheduling. It makes forgiveness less about being morally superior and more about unshackling ourselves from the cost of anger. If relationships can continue beyond this life, then holding on to grudges is like burning bridges you might need later. Maybe those who hurt us were themselves wounded. Maybe the best response is to heal rather than to punish, because healing builds what lasts. It also changes how I think about parenting. I used to focus so much on prepping my kids to win in the world. Resilience, competence, skill, those are still necessary. But if any part of us carries forward, the core teaching that matters most is how to love, how to show up, how to be kind when convenience would push you elsewhere, how to forgive when it would be easier to score points. Those are the habits that form a continuity of care. The kind of upbringing that creates people whose love becomes a living legacy and the world rewards that in peculiar ways. Small acts of decency ripple. A simple, patient conversation with someone who's rude can flip them from being an insult to being someone who later becomes your ally, or the person who tells a stranger about your good deed. That's not poetic nonsense. It's social physics. But if there's an afterlife, those ripples matter beyond the measuring stick of this life. I'm also thinking differently about endings now. I used to fear death like a power outage that swallowed my wiring. Now I imagine it more like moving to a different country. You keep your memories, your loves, your regrets, but you lose some of the noise. You might not be able to visit the old apartment, but the people you loved remain part of your story. Maybe they can find ways to make themselves known through a smell, a sudden idea, a stranger's words, a perfectly timed song. Maybe those aren't miraculous intrusions, but rather the steady everyday language of love continuing. Does this mean everything is explained? No. I don't have a road map or a proof in the scientific sense. I have a stack of experiences that when viewed together pull at a single thread. I have fewer existential panics. I have more patience with the awkward, angry, and broken. And I'm more intent on leaving something that matters to anyone who comes after me. Not just companies or code, but relationships that teach people how to be humane. So, here's what this has done for me. It made me live differently today. I take more calls from the people who matter. I forgive faster because the cost of carrying resentment feels bigger than any temporary ego win. I try to meet the hurt behind an angry face with curiosity rather than judgment. I teach my children that kindness and love are investments with the highest return, whether measured in lifetimes or in whatever might come next. Chosen one, don't just receive, respond. A simple super thanks up to $20 is a way to say yes to what heaven is releasing through this word. If I'm wrong, these are still good practices. They build better teams, better families, and a better life. If I'm right, then they are the very thing that will outlast me. Either way, choosing love is a safe bet. If you're reading this and missing someone, I'm with you in that ache. If you've had moments that tilt you toward the belief that love survives the body, share them. If you found other ways to make sense of these patterns, I want to hear that, too. Whatever your take, maybe we can treat each other with a little more care because the world and perhaps whatever comes after it could be listening.